The other book that I read that I finished this week was Agatha Christie, A Very Elusive Woman by Lucy Worsley. Lucy Worsley is a British historian, curator, and novelist, and for many, the face of popular television history. Appointed chief curator for historic royal palaces in 2003, her literary output is littered with her trademark wit and informality. I copied that from her website. I love when people have really good, short, quick, clear, useful biographies on their websites.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Since we've started doing these biographies, like reading them out, which I love that we do, but since we've been doing them, I've really learned like what a good biography is and what a bad biography is. Like when people just start listing every single prize they've ever been nominated for, I'm like, that should be a different section. Like that shouldn't be your biography.
Tell me about you first.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, I loved this book.
Oh,
I give this a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10, if that means anything to anyone. It was fantastic. So when I read her biography, like when I was researching to find which bio I'd read out loud, it said like Lucy Worsley's known for her informality, and I was like, yes. And then I was reading reviews of this on Goodreads just out of curiosity, and some people hate her informality. They're like, classic Lucy Worsley always has to like say things in some modern terms, and I'm like, oh yeah, I loved that. It was so fun.
Yeah.
So okay, this signifies a few important things. First of all, this is the first time I've read such a long book in a really, really long time. Well, and it's not even that long. It's like 360 pages. Oh. But like there's a lot of appendixes.
Okay, I'm like, it looks bigger than that, but
yeah, and I feel like the version that like on Kindle it was like longer, but it doesn't matter. Kindle, Kobo. Yeah, so it's the first time I've read a semi-long book. It's the first audiobook I've read that's over it was over 13 hours long. So I was like, I don't remember listening to a book that long before. But then most importantly, of course, it's the first proper biography that I've read. And this was a goal of mine. Well, actually, it has been a goal of mine this is the third year, where I just have this feeling within me that I would love biographies. It just like there's certain things about them that like I feel like make sense with my brain. And so I thought, I have collected quite a few of them in my day. I think it would be very fun to get into it. So I've challenged myself to read 3 biographies this year. This is the first one. And everything that I thought would be the thing that I like about biographies was was real.
Yeah, well, that's good.
It's so fun to go so deep and be so nosy about a person. But it's also very interesting to do it like way later when we have kind of the glimpse of time the perspective of time, where we're able to look back and be like, okay, actually, now we can see this within context of what was going on in her lifetime, and with understanding all of the crazy cultural events. Like, she lived through both world wars, and how much that impact. Okay, here's my fun fact. Here's one fun fact. There's so many fun facts. She, during the First World War, worked as a nurse, which a lot of women did. She worked as a nurse, but after a few years, she then shifted into working as a pharmacist. Probably as an assistant pharmacist. And she learned so much about pills and chemistry and about how poisoning works. And that is why most of her murders in Agatha Christie's books happen via poisoning. Because she had worked in this chemistry lab and like knew so much about poisoning. So that kind of little detail is so fun to know. And is so like, oh wow, like Agatha Christie is the best-selling author of all time. She has sold the most books of anyone ever. The only thing to beat her out is the Bible. It's the Bible and then Agatha Christie.
That's so
She
wild.
has sold so many books, and this book this biography really put into context how that happened, kind of why it happened, but also like how it was kind of crazy that it happened, and crazy that it was a woman, and an uneducated, quote unquote uneducated woman, because she grew up really rich and so she didn't go to school. And so, but then she just started writing and teaching herself and learning through her own life and stuff. The really fun part about Agatha Christie's legend is that she had like a massive mystery in her life. Agatha Christie went missing for a week.
Oh yeah,
and
you've told me about
no
this.
one knew where she went or what happened to her.
Yeah.
And even to this day, it isn't fully explained.
Yeah.
But basically, like, she was feeling suicidal, so she drove home. She dropped off her daughter. She packed a quick bag and drove off into the night. And no one really noticed because apparently, whenever she was feeling sad, she would often go on drives. And then the next day, they found her car in a heap.
Oh my god.
And her bag was still there and everything was there. And they're like, okay, she must have committed suicide. But some other cops were like, I don't think so. Like, I think she might be alive. And so a real mystery case happened with Agatha Christie. They tried to find Agatha Christie and they were like, as you can imagine, it really was bad for PR because people were like, she's just being dramatic and she's just a woman and she's wasting all this tax money trying to find her. The whole time she's just at a hotel having a good old time. Actually, that's not true at all. She was not having a good old time. She was very depressed. Yeah. And they think that she basically had like a mental breakdown and like had amnesia. And so it was kind of like spotty on understanding reality and not like, and so people would like, she would see herself in the newspaper, but not really identify that was her. It was a crazy week in a crazy year where she ended up getting divorced and like all these things happened to her. But then you put it in context of like how much that week like affected and eclipsed a lot of the rest of her life and the decisions that she made. And she had a husband who was an archaeologist. So she would go to Egypt all the time. And you're like, death on the Nile. Like, it's just so fun to see how these massive moments in classic literature come from her direct life. And if she hadn't married that man, or if she hadn't gone on that trip, or if this thing hadn't happened, like, we wouldn't have these famous books. So it was so much fun to read. I think Lucy Worsley did such a great job with this book. I could tell the whole time. It was very clear, and I don't think she was trying to hide it. It was very clear that Lucy Worsley loves Agatha Christie. So it was a biased biography. Right. And I found that in itself to be very fascinating because obviously the person who tells your story is going to have a lot of impact on the story that's told. Yeah,
totally.
And so having someone who really likes you or who really hates you or has a background in math or a background in English, like those things are going to really impact what details they highlight, which facts they choose to linger on, etc.
Yeah.
And so I could really feel Lucy Worsley in the book. And so the whole time you're like, this isn't a perfect look at her life, but it's somewhere with the truth. That's also really interesting. Finally, I will say I listened to the audiobook for most of this reading experience and I really, really enjoyed it. And so I thought, okay, the next thing I'm going to start is her biography of Jane Austen because that would be awesome. And it said like on the app, it was like read by Lucy Worsley. I was like, incredible, let's go. I click on it. It was not read by Lucy Worsley. Lucy Worsley like introduces the book, but then it's read by someone else. And I was like, okay, I'm devastated because I had now gotten really like used to and I learned to love her voice. Yeah. But it turns out that like in September, they're releasing a new edition of the book with a new audiobook that's read by Lucy Worsley.
What? Oh my god.
I know, because it's the 250th anniversary of Austen. So I'm going to wait until September to read that one so that I can listen to it.
Yeah, you don't have to wait that long. So give yourself a little break from the biography.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, okay, here's my question for you now. Does this make you want to read more Agatha Christie books? /
No.
Do you have them? Oh, okay.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's sort of like with Stephen King, where I've read his memoir, but I don't really care about reading his books.
Yeah.
I've read a couple of Agatha Christie's before. I've read And Then There Were None. I think I've read Death on the Nile, and there was like a really random one that I read, and they're fun. I like them, but I didn't love them enough to want to like read more of them.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, I've read 2 or 3 and I think that's enough.
Yeah.
That's good for me.
I feel you. So I had a great time. I'm really glad that I read it.